Ian had just moved to New York City, a young student chasing his dream of success, and everything about the city fascinated him: the skyscrapers, the lights, the constant hum of life. But he had no idea that behind all this beauty the city hid a darkness waiting for him, because one quiet evening in Central Park his eyes caught sight of something strange under a bench, a small animal unlike any he had ever seen. Its fur shimmered faintly like liquid gold, and its eyes glowed an unnatural, almost hypnotic green, and though he thought it would run away, it walked calmly toward him and leapt into his arms as if it already knew him, pressing its warm body against his chest. Hey. Warmth that felt comforting but also unsettling, like a secret whisper brushing his skin, so he took it home, thinking it would be company during his late-night studies, and placed it in his study room where it curled on a cushion but never stopped staring at him, unblinking, like a silent observer. And at first everything was normal as he opened his books, but as the night deepened the air inside the room turned icy cold though the windows were shut tight, his breath fogging as if he were in the middle of winter, and then without warning his desk lamp slid across the wood surface and fell with a loud crash, making him jump, and when he bent to pick it up his bookshelf behind him groaned and half a dozen books spilled onto the floor, the noise thunderous in the silence, his heart pounding as he turned to see the animal still unmoving, eyes burning brighter now, and for one horrifying second he thought it was smiling, but he forced himself to laugh it off, telling himself it was stress. Exams, fatigue, nothing supernatural, yet the next night the same disturbances returned and grew worse, papers flying across his desk, drawers rattling open and slamming shut, books flipping their pages violently as if some invisible presence was reading them in a frenzy, and all the while the animal remained calm, only watching, never moving, never blinking. And then came the night of the mirror when Ian, exhausted and tense, glanced at his reflection and froze because he was not alone. Behind him in the glass stood the animal but twisted, larger, its eyes blazing like green fire, its teeth bared in a hideous grin. But when he spun around in panic the real creature still sat quietly on the cushion, as though nothing had changed, and doubt began tearing through him. Was he losing his mind, hallucinating, or was something truly evil lurking in that room? And the answer seemed clear when one morning he found words carved into his wooden desk as if by claws: "You are mine now." Etched so deep his fingers caught in the grooves when he touched them, his stomach turning cold with dread, and that was when he tried to throw it out, picking up the creature and carrying it to the door, but the knob refused to turn, jamming as though locked by invisible hands, and when he finally managed to force it open and drop the animal in the hallway, by the time he returned to his study it was already back, sitting in the same spot, staring with those glowing eyes, its presence heavier, its gaze more powerful, and he realized with growing terror that each failed attempt only made it stronger, binding itself tighter to him, and soon the nights became unbearable. He would wake gasping in the dark with whispers in his ears, whispers in a language that did not belong to this world, and whenever he lit the lamp he found the creature watching from the shadows, unblinking, always there. And the whispers didn't stop even when he covered his ears, they sank into his skull, drilling into his mind until his grades collapsed, his sanity cracked, and he no longer knew if the world outside was real or only an illusion. His classmates noticed the dark circles around his eyes, the trembling in his voice, but he told no one because who would believe that a golden-furred animal with emerald eyes had cursed him, that his apartment had become a cage and his study room a portal of horrors, and now every night felt like surrendering pieces of himself to those burning green eyes that promised nothing but possession, until one night, as he sat shaking in his chair, he finally admitted the truth to himself: this was no animal, it was something ancient, cursed, feeding on his soul, and he had brought it home with his own hands. The nights in New York no longer felt like nights to Ian but like endless traps of darkness stretching into his bones, and with every passing day the golden-furred creature in his study seemed less like a companion and more like a parasite clinging to his very soul, because no matter how many times he tried to leave the apartment, he always ended up back inside, as if the streets themselves bent around him, pushing him toward the study where the animal waited with its emerald eyes glowing brighter each time. And now even in daylight the whispers haunted him, faint voices murmuring behind his ears when no one stood there. His laptop would flicker on by itself and show him old photos he had never taken, his own image asleep with the creature perched on his chest, watching with eyes that looked almost human. And panic ate him alive as he realized it was not just haunting him but documenting him, binding him, feeding on every heartbeat. And then one stormy night when rain slammed against the windows like fists, Ian snapped, he screamed at the creature, cursed it, hurled his books, and when he tried to strike it with the lamp, the bulb shattered in his hands and the room plunged into darkness. And in that darkness he felt something crawl across the floor, long and heavy, scales brushing against the wood, claws scraping, and when lightning lit the window for a second he saw it, not small anymore but stretching across the room, its body twisting like smoke and flesh together, its face no longer animal but something grotesquely human, a wide mouth splitting its head, teeth like glass shards, and eyes burning green like hell's lanterns. He stumbled back, heart in his throat, but the door slammed shut behind him and he was trapped. The whispers rose to screams, a chorus of voices chanting in his head. You are mine, until he collapsed against the wall covering his ears. But when he looked up, the creature was no longer across the room, it was inches from his face, its breath hot and rancid, its mouth curling into a grin that stretched too far, and then it spoke for the first time, not in whispers but in a voice that rattled the walls. You brought me here. Now you will never send me away. And with that, the floor beneath him cracked like ice, splitting open into blackness, the wooden planks falling into a void of writhing shadows, and Ian screamed as he tried to grab the edge, his nails breaking against the wood, but the creature's clawed hand wrapped around his wrist, not to save him but to drag him down, its strength impossible, its eyes filling his vision until that was all he saw, green fire consuming him, pulling him into the abyss, and the last thing he heard before darkness swallowed him whole was the sound of laughter, not the laughter of an animal but of countless voices all layered together, mocking, celebrating, and when morning came the apartment stood silent, the study neat as though untouched, the desk unscratched, the books perfectly stacked, no trace of Ian anywhere, but on the cushion by the wall the golden-furred animal sat quietly, its emerald eyes dimmed for now, waiting patiently for the next soul foolish enough to invite it home.